Today, we're looking at Elixir's Flame of the Forest. Hi, I'm Adam, and I'm an ink guy. I get inks, test them, and share the results with you. Now, to make sure I have a range of experience with this ink, I do the writing samples. I then put the ink into a different pen for a day. I then put the ink into a Noodler's Ahab with a modified flex nib to take my notes for this video. Now, before we go to the writing samples, let's look at the sciencey bits. Up first is the chromatography, and I agree with Vita that I've learned a lot by doing multiple chromatographies. The one on the left is done the way it's supposed to be done. I put a line of ink down and immediately dunk it into water for 10 to 15 seconds. And what we see is this very, very pink area across the bottom. Now we start to see little orangey spaces and in red across the top. The one on the right I let dry for 10 minutes before I dunk it into water. And it looks exactly the same. The tiny bits of yellow across the top are a little more noticeable than they were on the original chromatography, which I now am seeing. I wasn't really seeing it before, so we see some of the pinks, the red, and the tiniest hints of yellow in this ink. But more importantly, looking at these two chromatographies, I don't see a lot of resistance against the water, even after being let to dry. Resistance tests are done to see how this ink can be expected to perform on the page, and more importantly, how hard it might be to clean from your pens. I let the smear dry for 3 days before testing it. Looking at the highlighter, it does very well. It doesn't seem to feather all over the place. It doesn't seem to spread. It seems to just take being highlighted almost as if it was a permanent ink. Fantastic for note takers. Water reactivates and pulls most of this ink up off the page. It does leave some of the very light red and pinkish colors behind. Pen Flush does everything that water does, but with the additional area that we see white of the paper coming through. So if water is not enough, Pen Flush should get absolutely everything you need out of your pen. Bleach, as would be expected, completely obliterates this from the paper. For the inks I've tested, I've found an average viscosity of 2.5, with the realm of normal being from 2.1 to 2.9. Elixir's Flame of the Forest has a viscosity of 1.42, which makes it very wet, a high-flowing ink. To find my average dry time, I use my writing samples done with the extra fine and medium nib on Clairefontaine, Tomoe River, and Rhodia paper. For the inks I've tested, I've found an average dry time of 17 seconds, with the realm of normal being from 13 to 21 seconds. Elixir's Flame of the Forest has a dry time of 20 seconds. Now it's the higher side of normal, but that means it is normal. Now, let's look at the writing samples. I picked this ink up in bottle form, and when I ordered their ink, I ordered basically all 6 inks that they had, because that's what they had. They come in these very nice little bottles. It's like a little makeup bottle, you know, for all my makeup needs. No, it comes in this very nice little bottle. It's kind of like a small private reserve bottle. This isn't the cheapest ink in the world. It's not super expensive. I think it's very nice. I think the fact that they have a very limited line is very nice, so going through and testing all of them is not the end. They didn't have all of them in sample form. Basically, to get all of them, you just go ahead and order the bottles. To keep my writing samples consistent, I use a Jinhao 159 with a Goulet 1.1 stub. I use a Jinhao X450 with a Goulet medium, and a Jinhao X750 with a Goulet extra fine. Let's take a look at that Clairefontaine. No bleeding, no ghosting. The 1.1 gives no feather, no spread, no halo, no sheen. Beautiful shading through this. Really beautiful shading. Put that on the side so I don't knock it over off my table. The extra fine has no feather, no spread, no halo, no sheen. Beautiful shading all the way through it again. Really beautiful. And this is not a punch you in the face red. This is a nice, subtle red. It's not obnoxious, but it's got great shading, and 14 seconds to dry with the extra fine. The medium, no feather, no spread, no halo, no sheen, no shade, nope, tons of shade. All over for this guy. We get shading, tons in quick, tons in brown, tons in fox, tons in over. 20 seconds to dry. This is nice. The scrubby for both the extra fine and the medium show us we're going to get some color variation, and we did, and the smear test makes me feel that I could recover it.
Let's look at the Tomoe River. Tomoe River gives us no bleeding. It does give ghosting. Again, it makes that kind of dusty red happen. It makes it more muted. The 1.1 has no feather, no spread, no halo, no sheen, no shade. The extra fine has no feather, spread, halo, sheen, but it does offer us some shading, subtle shading. Very subtly from the Q being darker into the U being lighter, the I gets a little darker, the I gets a little lighter again, the C gets darker, the K gets really dark. Very nice. It's like showing the full spectrum right there in quick. And brown starts really dark, gets lighter again, and then stays that light tone. Fox starts dark, gets light, gets dark again. Beautiful. Beautiful shading on Tomoe River. 20 seconds to dry. The medium, no feather, no spread, no halo, no sheen, and we don't get the shade on the medium here. 26 seconds to dry. Now the extra fine scrubby made it look like we weren't going to get any color variation. It lied. We did. We got plenty of it. The medium showed no color variation. We didn't get any. And the smear test, I don't believe you could recover this. So Rhodia paper. Rhodia gives us no bleeding, no ghosting. And the 1.1 gives no feather, spread, halo, sheen, and no shade there. There's no shade in the 1.1. Sorry. The extra fine, no feather, no spread, no halo, no sheen. Yes, we get shading. We get a ton of really nice shading. This is really beautiful to look at. It was looking at this that made me wind up wanting to see this in a flexi pen. 16 seconds to dry. To look at that, and I know somebody's going to tell me how the Ahab, that's not a flex pen. It says flex, but that's not real flex. Not all of us can afford everything in the world. And on top of that, let's ignore what we can afford and talk about what we like. I like this pen. I modified the nib to give it easier flex. It doesn't flex anymore. I just cut the shoulders down. And I like how it writes. So if somebody likes how an Ahab writes, don't poop on their fun. Let them have their fun. And if I never know any better, if I never try a vintage flex, and that's all that I know and I'm happy, you let me be happy. That's all I'm asking. Don't rain on my parade. But look at the Ahab, what goes on with the flex, we see tremendous amounts of great shading and color variation. This is really nice. I like this ink. There's a couple Elixir inks that I think are great. They're out of Singapore, so you gotta, wait for them to come from overseas. But I think they're worth it. I think I'd like larger bottles. I think they're worth it, though. I think everybody should go out, support them. I got no affiliation with them. I just found them looking for fountain pen inks. Medium, no feather, no spread, no halo, no sheen. We get lovely shading the whole way through. Like we did with the extra fine, just darker. Very nice. 23 seconds to dry. The scrubby from the extra fine and the medium both show us we're going to get some color variation, and we do. And I believe if you smeared it, you would be able to recover it. So I like to see what happens on yellow paper. This is the yellow Rhodia. No bleeding, no ghosting. Not unexpected there. Not a lot happens to the tones. It's basically the same tone. This usually lets me feel like it's a very strong dye in that ink, that the yellow doesn't affect it at all. The 1.1 gives no feather, no spread, no halo, no sheen. We do get some shading up here. The yellow helps bring out that shading. It made some of the lighters a little lighter, like at the top of to bottom of. That F, it's light to dark. Nice. When I look at in Forest, the bottom of the F is lighter than the top of the F. Nice. The R is a lighter tone than the O. Very nice. Extra fine, no feather, no spread, no halo, no sheen. Shading all over. And it's beautiful. It's beautiful shading. It's what I want. It's what I need. It's like electrolytes. It's what the body needs. And what does the body need? Electrolytes. And the ink guy needs shading. And the shading needs the ink guy. 16 seconds to dry. The medium. I thought that was from me. The medium, no feather, no spread, no halo, no sheen. Shading. We do get shading. We get nice shading all over. It's not as Noticeable is the white because of how the yellow's interacting with the color. But ignoring where my thumb goes, we see a bunch. Look at quick. It's got a dot in the center of it for jumps. It's light to dark, up to light again. The U goes from a light to a dark within the U. Beautiful. Brown shows a ton of great shading. 23 seconds to dry. This is some nice ink. The extra fine and the medium scrubby both show us color variation, and we got that color variation. The smear test says we could likely recover it. So I went to one of my favorite papers, Life paper, and we got no bleeding, no ghosting. The 1.1, no feather, no spread, no halo, no sheen, but look at that shade. And I know some people are going to be bothered because they really want to see the sheen, and I'm going to tell you there is absolutely no sheen to be had by this ink, but wow, is it well behaved. And I put it on stupid thick, and yeah, it did come through on that part, but that's stupid thick. The 1.1 has beautiful shading. It's just great, and it's really coming out with this cream paper. It didn't make it go away at all. It didn't hide any of it. The extra fine, no feather, no spread, no halo, no sheen. Great shading all over the place. Really beautiful. That quick, the word quick goes dark to light to dark to light to dark. It just keeps going back and forth. It's almost like it's a strobe. 13 seconds to dry. The medium, no feather, no spread, no halo, no sheen. Beautiful shading the whole way through. The same thing's happening to quick that happened up here. It's more noticeable. Real dark, real light, real dark, real light, real dark. Wow. Just wow. 18 seconds to dry. That's really manageable. And this is a laid paper. Now the scrubby shows us color variation. It doesn't show us as much color variation. If you look far left to far right, you see those tone changes of both the extra fine and the medium. But those don't show as much as we do see in the writing. The smear test says we could likely recover it. Apica paper, another one that I really enjoy. No bleeding. Starting to come through where the scrubby's at. I don't generally count that because I'm putting it on stupid thick. No ghosting. The 1.1, no feather, no spread, no halo, no sheen. And look, fantastic shading all over it. Just wow. Extra fine, no feather, no spread, no halo, no sheen. Shading all over because it's got nothing better to do with its time than shade all over the place. That's it. It shades beautifully. 9 seconds to dry. Super manageable. The medium, no feather, no spread, no halo, no sheen. We have light shading. We really don't have very heavy shading here. I got to go ahead and tone this down some. We don't have very heavy shading. We have some shading. It's nice when it happens. If we look at what went on with the quick there and what went on with the quick here, noticeably different in the amount of shade. Still some decent shading, not great shading. So it didn't do as well as here. That means I go to the Apica, or I don't necessarily go to the Apica for this. I go to the Life for this. 14 seconds to dry. The extra fine and the medium, they don't really show the color variation. A lot more color variation in the extra fine than we got in the scrubby. The medium didn't show very much. We didn't see a lot. There's a little bit, but not a lot. The smear test says we could likely recover it. And that's all that I have for the writing sample.
Instead of finding inks that look like Elixir's Flame of the Forest, I would prefer to find an ink that complements its color on the page. Now, being such a great red, I wanted a standout blue. I chose Diamine's Oxford Blue because I thought they would look good together, you know, as a compliment. You look good, blue. You look good, red. Thanks. Before I give my opinion on this ink, I would ask, if you've enjoyed this video, give it a thumbs up. And if it's your first time here, I would invite you to subscribe. So what do I think of Elixir's Flame of the Forest? I think it's a really nice performing ink. It has really nice shading in almost all of my writing samples. It is not screaming and obnoxious as a red ink, but it does draw attention to what you're writing. And that's a very fine line to judge. Not being obnoxious is screaming, but still screaming loud enough to be noticed. And this ink does it. This is a fantastic red ink. Thanks for watching.